So I guess the Minnesota Vikings are trying to form a coalition of slower corners because they added yet another one here with Bashaud Breeland, who's a player I like. I think he's pretty good, actually, even though I am someone who is constantly saying you got to get quicker corners. And you don't always have to, and sometimes if you put them in the right system, things can work out. You know, they have Cameron Dantzler, who was a slower corner, who had a really promising rookie season, largely due to the zone scheme that they played a lot last year. I think Patrick Peterson, I could see him being a safety, perhaps. I think that there's a chance that happens. I don't know, especially with this signing, it makes it more likely. There still is Jeff Gladney, who was their first-round pick last year, but I like getting another guy in the room because their coverage was a real issue last year, and getting another guy who can play pretty well. He was Kansas City's #1 corner last year, so getting him could help him a lot. And at 1 year, just $4 million, that feels like a really good deal for me. That feels like a little bit like a steal, to be honest. So let's talk about what he does well. So first things first, let's start off with a play like this. So he is going to be going up one-on-one against Mike Evans right here because, again, he took on everyone's best matchup. He was their #1 corner. And as you know, it's a defense that they did play a lot of man coverage, which typically someone like Breeland, you think his skill set might be better in zone, and we'll get a little bit more on that in a second. But let's talk about what he can do well and kind of how I think he'll fit into this Vikings defense. Because a play like this, it's just a curl route, and watch what happens. So right when this play starts, Evans gets to the outside a little bit, and at this point, Breeland does kind of have to turn his shoulders, which makes things difficult because now he can't see the ball. So typically, this is a good situation for Tampa Bay. It's why Tom Brady is going to throw this way, because he sees that, or he's about to see that this is a good situation for Tampa Bay, and usually this results in a player getting open, just because it's hard to stop right on a dime, get your shoulders all the way turned around, and get over and make a play. However, watch how Breeland is able to stop and get over and knock that one away. A really good play from Bashaud Breeland, and it kind of goes to show, I think, that he can come back, even though he's, maybe not necessarily the fastest. What he makes up for is just being able to have good ball skills and things like that. He also breaks in very well, which, again, I think will translate to being a cover 3 or cover 2 corner, which I think that we could potentially see with Minnesota, because, again, they got a little bit of a slower secondary, so make it a zone secondary, and it could be a good secondary. But also you have something like this, where I want to be clear, his speed isn't an issue. His speed is an issue when he gets out of position. He then has to try and find a way to come back. But it's not like just a complete issue where if you have a fast receiver against him, he's just going to blow by him and get open constantly. That's not really the case. This play is a perfect example of that because it's going up one-on-one against Scotty Miller, who is a very fast receiver, one of the fastest receivers in the NFL currently, and it's a one-on-one matchup, single safety deep, and watch what's going to happen. I mean, as you see, there is going to be some pressure, so Brady has to throw it before he wants to, but Breeland is able to play tight coverage and actually get the interception there. Now, some haters might say that if that was a better throw, because if Brady wasn't under pressure and he could throw it further deep, maybe Miller beats Breeland. In fact, I probably would say that that's the case. But my point here is kind of, if you were to let him play 5 yards off because you're playing zone coverage, it then becomes much less of an issue. So that's kind of my main point. Like, for example, on this one, this is going to be the same two teams, but a different game. This is in the Super Bowl. You probably remember this play. This is kind of an example of, okay, this is maybe how he can get beat with a deep route, where you see Evans is running a go route against him. And as you see, I mean, Evans is going to get past him eventually and just run over and gets enough separation. Breeland kind of, creates some contact. For one thing, Evans just does that to people. He's great at getting by people, so I'm not really too concerned about that. But also, this wasn't really an issue for Breeland. I mean, he never really got beat deep, and part of that is the cover 2 zone, cover 2 man coverage, I guess. But at the same time, it wasn't all cover 2, and a lot of times the cover 2 still had sidelines open, and he was able to stay deep with people. So in terms of the deep route stuff, that's not a concern for me whatsoever. And you have stuff like this. This is, little nuggets I look for in what he can do that would be good for Minnesota. And it's kind of stuff like this. It's good ball skills. So again, man coverage, no one over the middle of the field. So what's going to happen is that Breeland has a one-on-one matchup. And watch, as you see, so Devonta Parker, who Breeland is going up against, is a little bit open. You can see why Tua wants to make this throw, right? You can certainly see why it would make some sense. But again, what Breeland has is he has great closing speed, a great first step, and great ball skills. And that's what would really come in handy in a cover 3 zone or a cover 2 zone. Because, like, watch, as you see, he runs in, he knocks the ball away. So, again, very good play, and that is something that I do think will come in handy for Minnesota if they play what they did last year, because that's another asterisk behind this stuff is that, they don't only play zone coverage, and in fact, in previous years, they have played a lot of man coverage, but I do think they're probably going to go to more of a zone coverage scheme. Zimmer is the kind of guy who he builds his team around, like, what the pieces he already has are. So if he has some good zone secondary players, he's going to add another good zone guy instead of another good man guy. Although Breeland is kind of unique in that he can do both. So if you need to play man, he is someone who can match up one-on-one against an opposing team's best player. But also, like right here, I want to show this play now because we can't just speculate on, oh, well, this skill will probably work in zone, or we can just show some zone plays also, because this is cover 2 zone, which is something that Minnesota did a decent amount last year. And, Dantzler was awesome in his zone coverage. So to me, it makes a lot of sense to get another corner who will excel there. And it also makes sense to get someone who can be good in man, so that way you don't have to rely on Dantzler trying to cover like a fast receiver, because that would be a little bit concerning for me. But now you don't even have to worry about that. Anyways, the way this play works is it's cover 2 zone. So Breeland, he is the corner on this play, which means he's covering the flat on the offense's left, which is the top of the screen. The flat is the one closest to the sideline on the top of the screen. That's what I'm talking about. Obviously not deep, that's a safety, more underneath. But you see that there's a route that could get into a gap in coverage, sort of just past the corner and just underneath the safety. And if you're not a smart corner, these things can get open, and especially when you have a situation where you don't play as much zone. They play some. Again, every team plays every coverage, basically, in today's NFL. But when I talk about what a team plays, it's what they play, like, typically. What's the majority of their snaps? But anyways, you see how right when this play starts, so Breeland, creates a little bit of contact and goes a little bit further back, but also he's in a bit of a tricky situation, right? Do you go underneath and cover the underneath play, or do you stay deep and cover the guy further deep? Breeland is doing a really good job of knowing exactly where he has to go. I've gone on some of these younger players about not realizing that, like, okay, you have to get a little bit further deep. Like, that's something I talked about with Damon Arnett, is that he would, 2 yards into the play, he's passing a player off to the safety. That's not exactly what Breeland is doing here. He's looking at Tua, and he knows he can get over. Because watch how he is able to run over and make that play, and if it was a little bit deeper, then the safety would have been able to come in and make the play. So again, he stayed only as far deep as he had to because he knew where the safety was. And that's just those smart little things like that. It's something you look for in a corner, especially if you're going to play some zone. And I think you put him opposite of Breeland. To me, what I would do is I would have, I would be tempted to have Peterson as a safety with Breeland on one side and with Dantzler on the other. You can get creative with that, but at least this way, because there is kind of some risk factor, right? Because who knows, maybe Gladney will not get better. Maybe he will. Maybe he won't. Maybe Dantzler, it was, just a surprise rookie season, and they'll figure him out. Although I don't think so, but, there is a risk there. There's a risk that Peterson will fall off a cliff. There's a risk that Breeland will fall off a cliff. But at least now you have a lot of guys with potential, and the chances are 2 or 3 of them will work. That's what I think. What do you guys think? Let me know in the comments below. What are your thoughts on this move? Always love hearing from you. And of course, as always, thanks for watching.